Okay, perfect. And I'm also just turning on the captioning. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Maureen. So Maureen is with Eco Canada, and she's going to provide just an opening overview around the organization and the mentoring program, and then we will move into the panel discussion.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this afternoon from wherever you are in Canada. So yeah, I'm Maureen. I'm working with Eco Canada. I'm a project manager in Blue Economy. This webinar has been organized as part of the Blue Mentorship and Leadership Pathway project, which we are working on in partnership with Canada's Ocean Supercluster, the Center for Ocean Ventures and Entrepreneurship in Halifax, the Joint Economic Development Initiative in New Brunswick, and the College of the North Atlantic in Newfoundland. So a bit about us very quickly. Won't take too much of the time, but a bit about us at Eco Canada. So basically what we do is we are steward for the Canadian environmental workforce in all industries. And as a nonprofit, we work in different sectors of activities, going from job creation, wage funding, training, post-secondary accreditation, labor market research, HR, solution for businesses, et cetera, et cetera. If you want more info about Eco Canada itself, you can look for the website at eco.ca. And for the project that I mentioned before, so the Blue Mentorship and Leadership Pathway project, basically what we have two main goals. So like the first one is to connect ocean founders to ocean experts to help them lead and grow effectively as like professional, but also the organization within the sector. So what we call ocean founders are people who are new to the ocean sector, including startups, but also recent graduates in a related field, or people who have been working for a while in the ocean sector, but want to evolve towards something more related to blue economy. And ocean experts will be professionals who have been working in the ocean sector for a while and are willing to share their expertise and lend some skills, etc. And the second main goal is to create an accessible and inclusive program for women, but visible minority groups and Indigenous peoples interested in working in the ocean sector. So one of the main components of this project, we have the webinars, that's for sure, but we also have this mentorship program, which is running online. It's running across Canada from April until the end of the project, so until the end of July. Everything is on the Mentor CD platform, and it's to achieve those two goals. So if you want more information about that, I will put my email address in the chat. You can join, like you can reach out to me. Sorry, I'm losing my English. You can reach out to me directly using this email address if you're interested. But yeah, and I lead it back to you, Audrey, for the rest. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks so much, Maureen, and thank you for sharing that information about Eco Canada and the Blue Mentorship and Leadership Pathways project. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and just want to describe a little bit about how today's session is going to unfold. We're really fortunate to have three great panelists with us this afternoon. We'll have a facilitated discussion to start us off. And then we're going to move into a little bit more of an open discussion. So just a few logistical pieces this afternoon before we move into that discussion, and I introduce the panelists that are with us today. I'm keeping my eye on the chat, so feel free to certainly share your information, introduce yourself, ask questions, or add some feedback or comments on what's being discussed in the panel, and I'll try to read it out loud as I see it. Also, we would appreciate if people can keep themselves on mute, just especially for this introductory section. When we move into the open Q&A, certainly you can raise your hand and ask questions, and we'll try to make sure that everything gets addressed this afternoon. Okay, we just have a few more people joining us, so I'm letting them in as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce the team that is with us today. We're going to start with Niru. Niru Samayajala is the president and CEO of Sensor Technology Limited. She's a passionate supporter of blue economy growth while seeking to become a world leader in acoustic tools and systems. Her company demonstrates a desire to become better global citizens, and her own activity adopts this philosophy in both her company and career. She's taken the family legacy model and really remodeled it. She's a second generation owner, and she's been ambitiously expanding her business, recently adding a second location in Atlantic Canada. And outside of this work, she likes to ride the waves as a paddleboarder, musician, and photographer. So welcome, Niru. We're really pleased to have you with us this afternoon. I'm also really pleased to introduce Dr. Jeffrey Taylor, who's the Associate Vice President of Applied Research and Innovation, coming from Nova Scotia Community College. Jeffrey Taylor joined Nova Scotia Community College in this role in June 2016, and he's privileged to oversee a thriving research, innovation, international industry liaison, and strategic partnership activities across all of the college's campuses. He's also on the board of directors of the Digital Research Alliance of Canada and is the chair of the National Research Advisory Council. Sitting on the board also of Springboard Atlantic, and he teaches in College and Institutes Canada's National Leadership Program. So really pleased to have him with us this afternoon. He also has a broad academic background, working with institutions such as the University of Waterloo, University of Colorado, University of Denver, and is a graduate of the National Science Foundation's Leadership Collaboratory Executive Management Program, holding a PhD in physics from the University of Toronto. So welcome, Jeff, glad to have you too. And our last panelist is Clayton Burry. He's been involved in the marine-related industries for more than 30 years. He currently serves as the VP Sales with a Canadian tech company called Virtual Marine. There, he's responsible for marketing strategy and driving global sales growth. His executive career began in the metal fabrication business, transitioning to upstream energy, defense, space, marine communications, and maritime simulation, an area where he's worked for the past 15 years. Prior to his role in Virtual Marine, Clayton held senior management positions with a number of different companies, including Kongsberg Digital Simulation, where he served in various roles, including VP Sales, General Manager for the Americas, and as President of its Canadian division. Among many of his key projects in his career, Clayton was the founding publisher of the Journal of Ocean Technology and the creator of the Ocean Innovation Conference and Exhibition. He also worked in the Panama Canal and was responsible for expanding its third set of locks. So really pleased to have Clayton with us this afternoon. He's also a graduate of Memorial University and has completed extensive executive training with Harvard, the Harvard Business School, MIT, and the Ivy Business School. So really pleased to have such a wonderful group of speakers this afternoon who have volunteered their time to join us. So as I said, for those of you who are just coming in, we have a structured panel discussion at the first part of the meeting this afternoon. I'll keep my eye on the chat, so feel free to add comments, to introduce yourself, or certainly share any links that might be relevant to those of you who are participating this afternoon. So we're going to start with our first question, and then invite Niru to take the lead on this question. Today's topic is really around understanding innovation and collaboration in this sector. What are we doing already? What can we do better? What are some challenges and what are some barriers? And how can we overcome those barriers? So Niru, we'd love to hear your thoughts on some examples of true innovation and collaboration in the blue economy sector.
Thanks, Audrey. I think there's so many examples. I could spend probably hours going through them. I know there's probably people on this call that could weigh in on it. From our perspective at SensorTech, we are a component manufacturer, and we know our place, I think, in the market, and we have to work with other people to get our product integrated into systems, and whatever that mission is that system has to go into. What I'm seeing, and I see it from a few different perspectives, now and this is all public knowledge, we've had a couple of ocean supercluster projects. Working through those, I think we really understood a different way to do collaboration, to develop innovative products. And it was something that was a little bit new for us. We're used to working with our customer and developing a product that's really specific for them. We do our R&D on the side. those are sort of the discrete avenues that we were pursuing. When we got involved at first with the Ocean Supercluster, you know, we had to have 3 partners. And so it was a whole learning curve of how do you work with somebody else? How are you collaboratively developing something new? How are you bringing, you know, their fortes to your fortes and minimizing some of the risk? I think there's tons of examples. If you look to the supercluster and all of the different, you know, 50 to 100 projects that have been announced over the last 5 years of great collaboration that's happened in Canada. I was just thinking of a couple of really interesting examples. I was at a conference last week called Ocean Business, and it's a blue technology conference that happens in Southampton in the UK every couple of years. And it was huge. There were 60% more attendees last week than they've ever had, thousands. I think 8,000 people showed up to the show. It was pretty intense, pretty amazing trade show. And there were a couple announcements that happened last week that I was really surprised by. There's 2 companies that I know of, one's American and one's European, that make acoustic communication tools, Subnero and Popoto Modem. And they launched a product last week where they're both working together to put a new product into the market. And for me, those real innovations are the ones that you don't expect. You would think that they would be competitors, but in fact, they were collaborators. So we confuse the words. They're collaborative competitors. I don't know what the right word is. There's probably something clever there. It's the ones that you don't expect that really surprise you. I read a press release not too long ago. There was RMDS is a big Canadian government program for mine disposal for the Canadian Navy. And Kraken Robotics, which is a company based in Halifax in Newfoundland, they won it. What I was surprised by was that they were actually partnered with other vehicle manufacturers. So they're a vehicle manufacturer based here in Canada, but they went out and decided to collaborate with Kongsberg, with Huntington Ingalls, to have a better arsenal of vehicles to be able to go out and dispose of mines, which is a really important mission when it comes to defense and protecting our people and our shores. And so kind of coming back to that same point, it's the collaborations that you don't expect. And I think perhaps we limit ourselves and the people that we think we can and should collaborate with. But I think the oceans are oyster. Why aren't we doing more with more people? And I think that's probably where the gems come out of. So my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, great example, Niru, and also, you know, challenging us to think a little bit about maybe more atypical collaborations and partnerships. Great example of 2 presumably competitors coming together to develop something new or to build more innovation. Great. I'm going to ask Jeff and Clayton any feedback on this question around examples of true innovation and collaboration in the sector that maybe you've seen in your space and in your purview. I think Jeff is on.
Yeah, if I go first, great.
Might need to go over here.
Hang on, I'll just fix that.
Okay. So Audrey just kicked someone out of the meeting. I hope everyone's okay.
I think I just muted them.
Yeah, thank you. I thought Niru had some great examples and really neat synthesis between various partners. You know, there's always that complexity that comes in with technology, and for us to have really true innovation, a complex relationship between partners is probably really necessary in 2023. And I don't mean complex like difficult, but just it's not as simple as the more traditional transactional projects. And we have a lot of those at my college where a big corporate fishing company says, can you help us save 5% in fuel costs and reduce emissions? You know, which is great. I think we'd all think that's a nice result, but it's very simple and doesn't really breed innovation that we're looking for, that transformative change that we'd like to see in the ocean sector. So I love the notion of kind of the startup yard at Cove, or some of the technology happening at the pier at the Halifax Port Authority, where we're seeing lots of startups come together with established corporates. Challenges are identified, funding programs are put in place, and cool new things are happening. I think those ingredients that the supercluster is supporting and ECO supporting, they will all come together and help us really get to some new space in the blue economy.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, and thanks for that, Niru and Jeff, you know, we're seeing a lot of the same types of trends where And just to Niru's comment about, would-be competitors cooperating, this whole, I don't know who coined it, co-opetition comes to mind, but there's a lot of that going on in our world as well. And it seems to be an increasing trend. Of course, Kraken is in our backyard. We know them quite well. So, yeah, I think that this is a very real thing that's going on right now. It's a very big shift, from the Cold War days of big bad commercial competition, especially in the marine tech sector, where we've seen some fierce competition, and we still see it. But I think one of the reasons why we're seeing that is that the end users are looking for solutions that no one can do alone. And so if we don't cooperate, we won't find, those end results. So I think the competition is part of the cooperation, the collaboration scenario that we're seeing today. And for us at Virtual Marine, we see this not only, on commercial projects, but we're seeing this in the supply chain. We're seeing it with our customers who are cooperating, in some cases with would-be competitors. So you never really know whose logo you're going to see on the next, the quotation that's coming in. You've got the Kongsbergs and others, of course, working together with other companies who are supplying bits and pieces. So I think it's a very real thing, and we all need to be aware of it in the blue economy.
Great, thanks, Clayton. I like that term. So maybe I make sure I pronounce it right. Co-opetition. I guess it's a mashup of cooperation and competition. Yeah. So lots of great points, and thanks to Jeff too for highlighting. There we go. Co-opetition, for highlighting some work being done at Nova Scotia Community College, and inviting us to think a little bit more beyond the more transactional models of collaboration that we've probably all been working on in the past. I'm going to move back to Jeff to take the lead on the next question. So given his experience, particularly in the post-secondary sector, when structuring a partnership, what are some of the things we need to keep top of mind, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks. And it's actually really good timing today. I just got back yesterday from Montreal from the Colleges and Institutes Canada National Conference, where I led a panel discussion on partnerships. And so this is like a perfect kind of timing for me. So I'm going to regurgitate some of my discussion from yesterday here. Just to kind of flag for everyone, I worked in universities where a lot of the partnerships were around a cool research question. How can we do some neat curiosity-driven work? And it was great, and it's very important for our kind of innovation in this space. But now I work in the college sector, and the partnerships are much more around applied solutions. How can we help an industry partner innovate? How can we help community innovate socially, let's say? And so I would say that the first step in a lot of that is funding. Access to funding, and partnering with colleges and universities should be part of helping an industry or a startup partner unlock access to some funding. There's lots of multiplier ways, and there's special pots of money that are accessible for new startups in partnership with post-secondary. So I'd say funding is probably a big piece of the puzzle. The second is, mutual benefit, and like, what's in it for me? How do we figure out what we need and what you have? And there's this great kind of like joke, I'll say, in Ottawa, that colleges across Canada have all this money for technology and talent and infrastructure, and businesses across Canada just wish they had the right technology and infrastructure and talent to make it work. How do we marry these two together? And I'd love to invite anyone here in the call, reach out to your local college system, reach out to your local Institute of Technology. If you have innovation challenges, it's a great partnership to try to build, and they can access federal funding, and it's not coming to your pocket. And we like to joke that we would love to be the R&D arm of Niru's company, for example, and do all the R&D for them so that they can then focus on the commercial side of their business. I realize it's not that simple, but I think that's a great partnership opportunity out there in Canada. And I'll stop. I'd love to hear what our industry partners here, Niru and Clayton, think of that.
Yeah, Jeff, we would love that too. We would love for you guys to be our R&D arm. So I can focus on selling stuff, and my colleagues can focus on making things. I think it's a great point that you made on the mutual benefit. That was the first thing I thought of. I was having a conversation with somebody about a joint venture today. And that's really, we couldn't go any further without determining what is it benefit to my business, what's benefit to his business. Because without that, I don't know how you go any further to determine that. But that was my 2 cents there.
Yeah, great points, and fully appreciate that too. Some really good points raised, Jeff, and I'm sure you had a good week discussing this. I always find this one of the most fascinating things. Any negotiating training that any of us have been involved in, we're always looking for a both win situation, and it takes a lot of work. It takes research into not only what your objectives are, but what's on the other side of the table as well. And if you can't sit in that person's seat and come to some arrangement, where there's a value proposition on both sides. And I think the other thing is that we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much, because they don't all work. If you're going to get 1 out of 5, maybe you're doing really good. But I think in the background for us, we do a lot of research work jointly with, National Research Council of Canada, with whom we have a CRA right now, Collaborative Research Agreement, which allows us access to a lot of data that's being collected at a research level that normally we wouldn't have access to. And in exchange for that, we're providing them with systems that they can use for conducting their research. So there's a lot more, but that type of arrangement is very symbiotic. But I'll come back to this later in terms of how we make that work and what we look for. But I think that these relationships between industry and the universities and NSCC, by the way, is a customer of ours, and I've known them for quite a long time. So I was glad to have you on board here today. I'll stop there.
Great, thanks everyone. And just to Jeff's point too at the beginning, I believe in the last federal budget, there was a ton of money allocated towards research and innovation in the college sector. So hopefully through Jeff and his team, some of you might be able to access some of that as well. And thanks to Niru and Clayton for adding their comments. I'm going to go back to Clayton for the next question. So again, Clayton, building on your experience and in your long bio there, just thinking a little bit about reflecting on your experience in this sector, how can we measure the success of a collaboration? What are some of the things we should be thinking about at the outset and then at the end to assess whether it was it met its goals and whether it was effective?
Yeah, so just to put everyone kind of in the frame of mind of what we do, so a virtual marine collaboration is a necessity for us, but we in harnessing the power of the blue economy, we design and manufacture a growing range of simulation products that are designed to help prepare mariners for mission critical tasks. So whether that's launching a lifeboat in 5-meter seas, operating a fast rescue boat to rescue people in the water, that's kind of, we're really uniquely focused on critical safety training. So in our world, we kind of have 4 different groups of people that we deal with. So we have our supply chain, of course, which is global in nature. But we also have a global market representation, or an MR network. So this is kind of an extension to our sales network here in Canada. It reaches globally. And then, of course, we have our customer base, which is also global. And then we have our research partners. So each group has its own unique, measure of success, but there are some common elements that we share across that side of the blue economy. I think, in short, the best collaborations that we've seen are the ones that are born of necessity. And so constantly revisiting those first principles and that value proposition. Why are we dealing with you? What is the advantage? How can we nurture that moving forward? Because like planting gardens, we have to tend to these relationships, and that's what it comes down to. It's people. And I think that, if we want these to succeed, integrity becomes really important. Keeping the fires lit with all these relationships is so critical, and it takes a lot of time. But it's really down to building trust between organizations and celebrating those successes when they come. Again, they're not always going to be successful. We had a lot of challenges, and I'm sure Niru in particular, with regard to supply chain during the pandemic, and we're still dealing with some of those. In truth, I think it's made us stronger as a result of that, and because it allowed us to tighten up, what we were doing as a company. But it really challenged us in a lot of directions to kind of revisit why are we dealing with this supplier? And we've asked a lot of hard questions that perhaps we weren't asking ourselves before the pandemic hit. So for us in our world, we're involved directly in digital disruption. We will take a simulator and we will place it in a market that's dominated by lifeboats, real lifeboats, people burning fuel in fast rescue boats, and displacing that with a full digital solution. And so for us, I guess the collaboration becomes a critical element. I'll stop there for now.
Great. Thanks so much, Clayton. And thanks for sharing your experience. Let's go to Jeff and Niru. If you have any other comments or could share any insight in terms of how do we measure the success of collaborations or partnerships?
Yeah, I love what Clayton talked about with like simulation and new technology. And I guess it immediately provoked for me, maybe a measure of success is our ability to diffuse new technology into this sector. Because this is a very East Coast perspective, but we are a historical kind of ocean heritage place. And my dad's old fishing boat in the Bay of Fundy still has the same diesel engine it had 60 years ago, and he's not going to modernize. So how do we help our industry partners adopt this new technology in an easy way? We're launching a new clean marine propulsion laboratory, which is a neat way to talk about vessel electrification, hybrid propulsion systems. You think, or we thought naively, that everyone would line up to come and use this service. They'll be so excited, and it's not that simple, right? The kind of change management that's required in the sector is quite significant. So for me, a true measure of success would be broad diffusion of new technology into our oceans economy.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Niru.
Yeah, when I think about some of the collaborative projects that we've done, for me, the success, there's always two questions that I ask myself. Is one, did we learn something? And continuing with Jeff's thought, it's great to put something out there. Sometimes it doesn't always work. But if we learn something through the process, I feel like there's something tangible that I can go forward with and maybe learn on the next project or collaborate with different people. And then the other one's a little less tangible, but it's how painful was it? And that's the thing that no one wants to talk about, but sometimes partnerships don't work out great. And hopefully we learned about why it worked and didn't work. But if it's really, really painful, there's probably a whole bunch of reasons as to why. Either it wasn't defined properly, people didn't know what they were supposed to be doing as part of the partnership, or maybe it's just not the right fit. And I think, when we're going through all of these things, it's good to ask those questions at periodic points. I know personally, we don't always ask them at the right times. And, you come out of it and you're like, man, I wish we had done this or this a little bit differently. But those are kind of the things that I consider our measures. I know they're a little bit less tangible, but those are the questions we're definitely asking ourselves all the time.
Thanks, Niru. Yeah, and good reminder just in terms of building partnerships to build in those moments of self-reflection, hopefully before the end of the project, at those critical moments when you have points where you can kind of course correct and really change the arrangement and so on. I'm going to go back to you, Niru, for the next question around what are some barriers to collaboration? So thinking about some of those pain points or possible pain points. What are they? And then what are some possibilities or some ideas as to how we can overcome those barriers?
Yeah, I guess it's just a continuation of what I was talking about is for us, we find that the best success that we have is when we've really defined things well with our project partners. I find when it's a bit vague or it's a bit gray that things get a little murky. And you get into a lot of feelings, and that doesn't always lend itself to super collaborative process. I find those projects where we took the extra time at the beginning and we were really clear about, what I'm going to get, what they're going to get, how we're going to work together, what it is that we're trying to do, what each of our responsibilities are. When everything has a bit of time and you can actually lay it all out, that it tends to work a lot better. And we end up coming up with something that's really kind of novel and interesting. And when we don't do that, or when we rush the process, or if somebody's not super clear, all of that ambiguity can lend itself to murky waters. So I think that's one of the, for us anyways, the biggest barrier for collaboration is just making sure we all know what we're supposed to be doing.
Great, and I think Clayton too mentioned, you know, the time it takes to make sure these relationships are kind of nurtured and things like that, and clarity is important. Yeah, I'll ask Jeff and Clayton a similar question. So again, thinking of your own perspectives with Jeff in the post-secondary sector and Clayton also from that industry perspective. In your experience, what are some barriers to collaboration and some possible opportunities to overcome those barriers, or ways to work around them?
Sure, yeah. So a very easy and obvious one, and I'll kind of bring this up so no one else has to, but speed of business. The speed of business in the post-secondary sector is rather slow compared to the speed of business in the industry, right? And I really recognize that, and the need for us to find a way to match. Post-secondary sector, of course, is kind of academic, musing, kind of long time thinking about things versus the need to sell and commercialize in business and industry and get things done. And we're trying to bridge that gap in the oceans economy. We've created Nova Scotia's only technology access center, CTAC. It's down at Cove and Dartmouth Waterfront, and that's kind of an arm of the college that's meant to try to collaborate quickly and do almost fee-for-service transactional work if need be, but also develop fast partnerships with industry. It was a great thing to launch about 2 months before the pandemic started. So it's been a slow start for us to get going, but we're getting more and more traction, and you'll find more of these technology access centers all across Canada. So hopefully that's a model that we can use to really help merge the post-secondary industry world.
Yeah, and I think some good points there. And you, Jeff, you just spoke to something I think that's kind of mission critical when we're looking at collaborations, and that's cultural fit. And more, you know, we have industry, government, academia working together. And, you know, I think sometimes it's important to press the reset button and just kind of step out of your skin and just, you know, try to better understand where the other groups are coming from, because, you know, when you do that, I think you expand your mind and you just open up a whole lot more collaboration. I mean, from my perspective, I think some of the impediments and some of the things we need to look for, some of the pitfalls when we're trying to find the right collaborations, is certainly communications. Niru talked about this, having very clear objectives so people understand. People are busy during the day with their own things. Like, make it simple. And I think that that's really important. Keep the objectives, you know, very small and focused. The other important thing, though, is I think putting KPIs on that. I mean, set a date and make sure that those deliverables are going to be met and people are going to be assigned responsibility, and celebrate those successes when they come. Again, this is about nurturing relationships. I think for me, you know, the telltale of a successful relationship is the one that stands the test of time. And you're going to see a lot of challenges come and go. And we've got a relationship. I just came back from the UK last week, and we have a group that we work with now. We've been working with them. I had no clue. Someone told me that it's been 12 years since we've been dealing with these folks, and they're a market representative. They have a training center that we collaborate together on. And I kind of look back at the good and bad stuff that's happened there. But above it all, we've maintained the relationship, and we're not afraid to stop and pick up the phone if there's an issue and address it before it escalates. So that's something else. Again, it's tending gardens, and, you know, the time stamping, I think, is really important.
Great. Thanks so much to everybody for sharing those experiences. Some good comments there around, you know, making sure that there's a cultural fit, clear expectations, to Clayton's comments too around developing key performance indicators, into the relationship and the collaboration, and then revisiting those as needed. So lots of great ideas there around ways that we can overcome maybe some traditional barriers. I'm going to move it back to Jeff. So Jeff, just reflecting again on your experience, thinking about, we want to look ahead. We want to end on a maybe more forward-thinking note. What are some key priorities? So how would you identify or articulate some priorities for innovation in the blue economy sector?
Yeah, right now, I'd say not just blue economy, but across the board, everyone's biggest priority is workforce talent. Where can I find good people? How do I retain top talent? How do we make sure people have the skills that they need to do good work in my company, in my sector? We hear that all over the place. It was loud and clear just yesterday in Montreal. Here at government, it's sort of the top priority for Canada right now. Probably the solution is things like micro credentials, short courses, upskilling, reskilling, all these buzzwords you hear, but new models of training and education to ensure that companies can get staff quickly that have the skills they need, but are well integrated into their business. So work integrated learning, co-op programs, all kinds of different existing models that we can try to leverage. Another good one for this sector, for the ocean economy, is around EDI, right? It's a very traditionally male-dominated field, and finding a way to diversify talent, serve equity-seeking communities, be more inclusive. Those are all parts of solving some of this talent workforce challenges. And probably the last priority I'd mention, and it's almost like one we're struggling with, or we're all kind of thinking about, is sustainability. And everyone loves the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we all want to decarbonize and ensure that there's healthy fish catchments and tourism is appropriate and everything, but hard to do. It's harder to execute than it sounds. So it would be a top priority and a challenge area, I think, for all of us to continue working on.
Great, thanks so much, Jeff. So you articulated talent, EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and then true sustainability, I think. Yeah, excellent. So Niru and Clayton, any other priorities for innovation or maybe variations of those themes?
Yeah, I think one of the things that that I struggle with is that we're so focused on going outside of our country. We're out creating relationships with international partners and different clusters and all of that. And I think what we're realizing, especially through the pandemic, through some of the supply chain shortages, is that we lack a lot of infrastructure, knowledge, know-how, technology in our own home. We couldn't make our own vaccines at the beginning, and we've had to really ramp up our technology and our know-how to do things. And so I think one of my a colleague called it insourcing. And so going back to the model where we're looking at North America to source a lot of our things, and so we've got to foster that technology and innovation to be able to bring up a lot of different areas. It's not just the ocean tech, but everything from vaccines to food to transport, all of it. And for me, I guess one of my priorities for innovation within the business is just making sure that it really supports the corporate vision, and trying not to just go after everything, which is when it's interesting and it's kind of glitzy, it's shiny, it's like, yeah, let's do that. But if it's not supporting our path forward, and ours is specific to us, then I tend to take people everywhere, and so for us, it's really being strategic about, okay, this is what we're trying to do. These are the innovations that we want to prioritize within our business, and kind of charting that path forward. And that for us is pretty top of mind.
Yeah, some good points there. And I think, it reflects our experience with our supply chain. And we had a lot of issues with China and unavailability of parts and boards. And we ended up turning to, some local suppliers in Canada and also in Ireland as well. And that's worked out actually really good for us. I think one of the things from our perspective, we kind of occupy a very unique position in the blue economy, because a very large part of our market is still upstream energy. So we're dealing with oil and gas, but it's interesting because we're trying really hard to, decarbonize them. I won't say decarbonate, but decarbonize them, because they are moving increasingly towards a digital solution and moving away from burning fossil fuels, and exposing people to unnecessary risks in the workplace. And so just, I'll just share something. I was in the UK last week, and we had some meetings with one of the largest unions that supplies people to offshore and merchant vessels. And they are very concerned about the safety of their people. In fact, this has become a very big issue for them, for their union membership. And so they're looking for opportunities to, where technology can be used to help, remove that fear and make people better prepared. That's just in our area, but I would say, for the larger audience here today, if you're working in the upstream oil and gas industry right now, we're seeing a lot of common innovation applications across other areas, renewables such as offshore wind, with Global Wind Organization. So we're pivoting a little bit there on that side. It's a new market for us, but there's small boat applications there for bringing people into these platforms and safely getting them on board so they can do service and get them safely off onto a mother vessel. And so little things like that, we can shift that from upstream energy applications to GWO. And that's just us. And I'm sure that, a lot of the people around the table here today probably have similar examples where they're, looking at adapting technologies that were used in, in oil field to new industries. And I think that is a big parallel opportunity for us as we move forward in the blue economy.
Great. Thank you so much, Clayton and Niru and Jeff, for taking the lead on that question. So lots and lots of discussion, and I think some great perspectives. I like to have, Niru, how you invite us to stay in our lane, so to speak. And certainly, I think that many of us focus on kind of the next shiny object, but thinking really clearly about what's best for our business, for our purposes, and things like that as well. So we're going to just pause for a minute. I'll let our panelists take a quick breather. We'd like to turn it over to those of you who are on the call with us this afternoon. And as I said, it looks like we have about 30 people, which is wonderful. So we'd like to invite you to ask questions, either if you want to direct them to a panelist or if you want to ask a general question. We're happy to take those questions at this time. I'll keep my eye on the chat, and you can certainly come off mic as well. So we'd love to hear from you. If you don't have a question, but you have maybe a comment, or you'd like to add on one of the themes that was presented this afternoon, we would love to hear that as well. So I'll take a pause and keep my eye on the chat, and feel free to raise your hand as well. Just if you need some instructions to do that, you just need to hover over the Zoom toolbar at the bottom there and just click raise hand. Okay, great. Thanks. I've really loved the session. Great. And also take a moment too. I know we have many people from lots and lots of different organizations. So if you want to share your website or some links to other projects you might be working on, by all means, please feel free to add them in the chat as well.
We're hosting right now a trade delegation from Kenya today and tomorrow, and Kenya has launched a whole blue economy strategy. They have a cabinet minister of the blue economy and everything. They had a launch in the fall in Mombasa, and so they're traveling around the world, I guess, to figure out how other countries have done it or are trying to do it, maybe in our case. And really neat to see that this is not just a Canadian kind of approach where we're trying to figure out kind of the future of kind of sustainable economy around the ocean, but being embraced all over. So if anyone wants to follow up with me and attend a session tomorrow with the Kenyan minister, just let me know, and we'll see what we can do.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jeff, and glad that we can have Canadian colleagues sharing and collaborating for sure. Yeah, and certainly I think it was mentioned kind of along the way in the Q&A, but this is a global sector, right? So it's we're certainly trying to have a discussion here around maybe the role Canada plays and so on, but we don't want to be remiss and understand that there are many countries that are ahead of us and are doing a lot of creative and innovative things as well. Samira. Samira, I'm not sure if you have a question or you're giving that a thumbs up. Okay, and then I see Supan's adding that he would like to be part of the mentorship program. So certainly we have your contact information, and Maureen and I will touch base and reach out to you for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do one more call for questions. So this was a little bit off script, but just want to maybe invite the panelists. We do have some people on the call who are maybe new to the sector or looking to get more involved or to build careers in the blue economy sector. Wondering if you have some advice or can reflect on some ways that people can participate.
I've actually got a question for the group, so I'll ask.
Go for it.
I'll ask the $20 million question. How many of you on this call today are actually looking for work in the blue economy? So there you go. Maybe a show of hands, and Audrey can do a count. I'd be curious. The reason I say that, and maybe Niru can maybe shares this, I will tell you that, like a lot of technology companies, we're going through growth spurt right now, and it's just hard finding people. And I'm just curious if, what the market is like in different parts of the country. And so always interested to know, but yeah, absolutely.
Every company I know is desperately trying to hire. I feel like it's the best time to be looking for work. I don't know, but I'm not looking for work. So I can't say.
Yeah, and I think to Jeff's comment too on the priorities in the sector, right? The first one is talent. Yeah, when you think about, so Niru and Clayton, for those of you that are, when you're in a hiring role, what are some of the skills that are really needed or skill gaps that you're looking to close?
For us, we're just looking for competent people. That's it. Yeah. I don't, that's sort of my approach. I'm like, I'm not going to look at their name. Hopefully they
competent people, the ability to learn. Yep.
The ability to learn, to work with us. We are predominantly manufacturing. So for us, a big requirement is to work in the office, because we're building stuff, and that's hard to do. We have a few people like our HR and finance. Some of those team members are not on site, but for the most part, we're looking for engineers and anyone technical, project management, mechanical, electrical, software, all of it. Yeah,
we have a similar situation at Virtual Marine. I mean, we've just I come in here every day, and I don't know the names of some of the people who I'm seeing, and which is good, but there are a few large companies, like every economy, that end up being a sinkhole, and they kind of drag away a lot of the eligible workforce. So the challenge is, looking for the people with the right skills. But I think a lot of it for us at Virtual Marine is looking for people who have a good fit with our team. And maybe you're looking for a lifestyle, that works for them. So we've been very sensitive to that. We find that, we don't have a whole lot of churn, but I think the challenge with any company growing is that you're always looking for new people who are, so you have to do a lot of hunting at the educational school level. Work term students, and try to nurture them up through. That's actually been quite good strategy for us, but it doesn't solve all of the, all of the problems, because you do need people with experience for some of the heavier end software development and manufacturing side, and we do a lot of that as well.
Yes, thanks so much, Clayton. I just want to check too. So just, I think Jeff is about to jump in, and then I'll go to the question in the chat.
Well, I'm just going to say really quickly, you know, we have an oceans technology postgraduate certificate program that we run in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and it's like 8 months with a 4-month internship. I'm sure Niru's hired some graduates, and the idea is that's meant to be fast and get people with competency into the market. And then we're opening a second section of this at our new Sydney campus right on the water when that campus opens in 2024. So we're trying our best to help, but even with this very expensive, heavily promoted program, you know, we might graduate 15 students a year. So it's just not enough to meet the demand that there is right now.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeff. And I think I just put that program in the chat too. So just want to go to the maybe the last question, which is coming from one of our participants. And what would you suggest in terms of finding a job for people who are Canadian citizens but have education from abroad? So maybe some advice on how to position that education so that it can open some doors in the Canadian blue economy sector.
So I can jump in here. I'd say 70% of our people have education from abroad, and our hiring policies are great. And can you communicate effectively with your colleagues, and can you learn, and are you willing to work? I don't know. It's non-issue at our facility. But I would say focus on experience, definitely make sure it's relatable, maybe add in the Canadian equivalents so that people have a way to be able to compare apples to apples, at least HR people. I think that might be helpful. That's it. Hopefully it speaks for itself. But look for the organizations where it's not a focus, right? That you have to be Canadian educated. Maybe that's the key.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Same thing here. I mean, you know, we have a swath of international people here from everywhere on the planet, and a lot of them got their education, you know, from their home country and ended up coming to Canada. So again, I think that's a really good point Niru made, which is, you know, if you're looking for work, look for a company that has a culture that, you know, is welcoming to that. And I think that you will find more and more of them in Canada that are open. So, you know, as an industry and as a group, we need to help change minds on that too, and not just, you know, cross-cultural, but you know, just looking at parity. You know, our industry has been male dominated for a long time, and we do a lot to try to change that, but we all have to work on that together.
Yeah, and I think so yeah, some great comments there. So Niru is just mentioning, certainly it shouldn't be a setback, but thinking about positioning that experience, what might be the Canadian equivalent that might be useful to explain or to communicate. Yeah, so certainly there are lots and lots of opportunities. I think we're hearing from all three panelists that talent is really kind of the number one issue in this sector, and I mean in many sectors across Canada. Okay, maybe one last question. Advice in terms of, Samira's question. Let's just make sure we capture this. Maybe last word, advice in terms of international partnerships, anything to look for to minimize risk. Great question from Samira.
I guess I would just add quickly, if you can, try to leverage funding related to trade exploration or entrepreneurship programming, because it's very important to get out there and understand the international market, but it takes time and resources. And if you can leverage any government programs, for example, I think you should try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, great advice, Jeff. And I've certainly worked with overseas Canadian trade commissions overseas that have helped in various projects and things like that. And the actually skill set and talent and kind of cultural competence out there is amazing and is usually free as part of a project or service. Yeah, Niru?
I was going to say the same thing. We're looking at partnerships, even like agents that represent sensor tech in other countries. And we're using the Trade Commissioner Service to even vet the agents and the partnerships in lots of different countries, in Australia and India and Japan. So it's a great service. And I don't think I really used it until very recently. But it de-risks a lot. Like they'll go and visit people at their place of business, make sure they actually have the brick and mortar that they say that they do. They really go that extra mile. So yeah, trade commissioners.
Yeah, I fully
Great.
support that. We've had a similar experience as well. But in terms of things to watch out for globally, I'll throw out one word, 2 words: time zone. Be really conscious, because we have a global network of MRs, market representatives, and customers, of course. So, and part of the reason why we have the global market representation, and growing, is because we need people in those countries to deal with them during their workday. And if you don't do that, there ain't no way you're going to support it sensibly moving forward. So if you want it to succeed, you got to have people in the time zone. So that takes a bit of time and effort to coordinate.
Certainly a practical consideration, right? You need to demonstrate that you can do business during kind of regular business hours. Absolutely. Well, on that, we're right at the edge of our time here. I did post a quick link to a very short survey, a 30-second survey. We'd love to get your feedback and just learn a little bit about what other topics you'd like to see in our webinar series. We have a final webinar, which is May 25th, the last Thursday in May. And we will be focusing on just expanding on some of the comments Jeff had identified. The number 2 priority for the sector for innovation is around equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we'll be taking some time to do more of a deep dive into that. So please watch out for the link to register for that session as well. So on that note, though, I'm really pleased that we had such a great conversation this afternoon. Thank you so much to Niru, to Jeff, and to Clayton for coming together and for honoring us with their time this afternoon and their expertise, and certainly gave us a lot to think about. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon, or enjoy the rest of the morning wherever you are across Canada today. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.